Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm the partnership manager here at Walls.io. And today I'm going to talk about digital transformation of in-person events with Mike Tenholder, Senior Director of Alliance Partnerships and Cvent. Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Alex. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So in-person events made their big comeback and people are rushing to the venues, but with much higher expectations that they used to have before the COVID pandemic and the whole wave of virtual events. According to one of the Forrester's research, 77%, and it's a staggering number, of event professionals agree that attendees at in-person events have higher expectations for digital features than they used to have a few years ago. Could you maybe share with us what Cvent does today to fulfill these new expectations?
Sure. So when it comes to digital features, some people automatically think that it's the screen on my phone or my iPad or whatever it might be, right? My tablet, but it's more than just that. It's the experience, whether you're there in person or on virtual. But the idea, one of them is, first of all, have all the content in one spot, right? If you're attending in person or virtually, if there's any session content, is to be centralized in one sort of application or site that people can go to. And that addresses both in person and virtual. When they're on site, there's a lot of content that goes into mobile apps, and we have our own product, of course, for this, an attendee hub. But it's the idea of putting it all in one spot. But it's also as you walk around the trade show floor, right? Things like seeing, networking content on a digital screen somewhere, right? The signage is a big deal, right? There's other digital experiences where people, and this sounds very basic, but they don't want to take a lot of collateral with them home. They just want to be able to say, "Oh, I see your brochure. Can you just send it to me, or can I download it?" So you see QR codes at booths, right? Lead retrieval is another one. So there's a lot of digital things. Instead of handing out business cards like we used to do forever, I don't even know if you have any business cards. I don't even know if I can even find my business cards, but how you can connect digitally through that experience and being able to connect with you in that matter. And speaking around networking, there's a bunch of other things, but networking within a site or an app or our attendee hub is being able to make connections that way and interact, while you're on site. There's a lot of things that go into this, but you're right, 77%, they all say they need to have more than just a meeting with a screen and someone speaking and food and beverage. It need to be more of an immersive experience so people can be more engaged in the content. And digital just accentuates that because people network in different ways, right? Some people talk face to face. Some people want to do it digitally. And that's why it's so important to have those features available at meetings.
We already mentioned the mobile apps, of course, first thing that comes to mind, and QR codes. But what do you think are the digital tools and practices? Like what else is there you consider a total must-have for in-person events today?
Certainly a must-have for an in-person event is something that's on a mobile device. App, set app. That's where all the content, and very specifically, it's got to have agendas in it. It's got to have where you need to be at a certain time. Things like interactive features, like like social capabilities, social walls, social posts. All of those things need to be in that one area because it's convenient for the attendee, right? Just because they can look at it, they can find everything they need right then and there, right on their device. So that is absolutely a must-have to do that. Whether it is an app or some other sort of a hub system like attendee hub or whatever. I mean, that's what they need to have. The other things inside that are also around capabilities around networking. Like we just talked about that, right? About those are some of the digital tools they need. So really they need sort of a one-stop shop to get everything they need related to that event. Because I don't know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I remember the days of carrying a bag around a conference or a meeting in those respects with collateral and stuff, or a training meeting where I got this big binder I got to take home. And maybe I'm dating myself here, but there has to be a way to be more efficient. And the other things that does lend into ESG type of things by not having to print a lot of materials and making things a little easier and a little more cost effective. But that's the number one thing is to have that. The second thing is for those events that have requirements for networking. Now, some of these events don't need them, like training sessions or an internal meeting where you're with employees, you're with one another. Maybe you don't know each other, but you work for the same company. That's one respect. But if you have an event where people are coming to a road show or a product launch or some sort of seminar or user conference, there's likely going to be sponsors there. Usually they're sponsors. And in some cases, when there's trade shows, right? So that extensibility from that simple mobile app is the way, and I already kind of mentioned this, but able to connect with those sponsors and with those exhibitors and even other attendees inside that app, and make sure they can connect well, and then be able to tell people about my experience. I met so and so, and I want to share that through social walls or social media or whatever it might be, to really have an event that extends just from that app and that inside on site, but it goes out into the world for everyone to enjoy and understand and get excited about next year's event.
Cvent is known for organizing huge events, specifically the Cvent CONNECT. That was a huge success this year. Cvent CONNECT in Las Vegas had 3,500 people on site and roughly 1,600 people virtually. That's a lot of attendees.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what was the secret ingredient to connecting so many people, both on site and virtually?
Well, it's an interesting question. I will tell you in full disclosure that we did take advantage of the market conditions because, frankly, people want to get out of their houses. I mean, that's what you've seen since, I guess, mid to late 21, 22 into 23. People were wanting to go out, and they wanted to meet people. They wanted to go to conferences. They wanted to go to events. They wanted to do these different things. There was a bit of a constraint because of budgeting. Not every company budgeted properly for people to go out because they weren't quite sure how to budget, right? So in 2023, budgets kept up or met up or matched up or whatever you want to call it with the demand to go out into these events. But people are being smarter about it. So one of the secrets of getting people to Cvent Connect specifically is making sure that the content was worth going to see, right? So it's not just about someone on a stage in front of 3,500 people pontificating about the state of the world, because I like to pontificate. So, but that's not really what it's about. Having the right kind of content designed for different types of people. So having training sessions for people that want to learn more about their product, having a partner summit that's about bringing our partners and explaining what their value prop is to our end customers and how we take them to market. And then you have your regular attendees and you have your sponsors and so forth. But the connection between all of them, they have sort of a common theme, is that we're in the event business and we want to do the best that we can, and we want to learn as much as we can so that we can take it back internally to their own companies and have a better program, whether it's an agency, how they can do better things for themselves. But all of it's tied around technology. We're a technology company, right? So everything you needed was sort of wrapped in this functionality of our product, of course. But also the other ingredient is using partners to supplement where we don't do something. And that's one of the key strategies we have around here, is that we know that we do things really, really well, but we do really, really well inside a certain parameter. And when some things don't quite fit that parameter, we find other people to supplement. Like we don't do a lot of social media stuff ourselves. We don't do photography ourselves. But so we tie into those platforms, those services, to bring a holistic view. And so there's one that you'll see, I think maybe later, that when you go over to the one in Europe, you can take a picture of yourself and then you can find yourself in the photo gallery, right? So without having to go look through 1,000 photos to find yourself, you can find yourself through photo recognition. There's other things around lead retrieval we talked about. We talked about connecting through the app or other means so that you can take advantage of the networking opportunities. And that's where a lot of things are done, by the way. A lot of the learning, and it's done through networking. It's not done in the event. It's done, at the events after hours. It's done during the food and beverage, like lunches and dinners and so forth. So that's how we brought them all together. And they had some fun at night. That always helps.
That sounds so much fun. Sadly, I myself or our team couldn't attend the Cvent CONNECT in Las Vegas this year, but we still could sneak a peek at what was going on at the venue by listening to the Get Connect podcast. I think there was a few episodes from inside the Cvent CONNECT, and in one of those, your colleagues discussed the concept that I, as a marketer, really loved, the concept of attendee intelligence or attendee AI, and how event planners can make all the difference by simply asking their audience what content they want and provide it over time at their next events. My question immediately was, what do you think are the best practices to foster this attendee intelligence and inspire people to create content on site and share what they want to see next?
Yeah, so attendee intelligence, not to be confused with artificial intelligence, AI.
Exactly.
which I could do. The thing is, it's an interesting question, and I'm glad that we put some content out there about that because, there's always been this in the past. There's been a cookie cutter approach to an event. It's like, okay, you come in, there's a cocktail reception. You come in the next day, there's a keynote or there's an opening, whatever. It's just like it's almost like you could copy and paste the agenda from year to year. And that, frankly, the engagement scores would go lower because it's like, I already know that. You're telling me to say, yeah, okay, you're going to feed me and it'll be some fun, but it's the same thing. Give me something else. Tell me what I need to hear, or tell me what I don't necessarily know I need to hear. So that's why when we do a lot of planning for Connect, and our customers do the same thing for their events, is they go out and they, whether it's surveying or whatever it might be, they will go out and they will say, okay, we know what we did last year, right? We know how we scored in certain areas last year. We know how well these speakers did and how poorly these other ones did. I think I might be in the middle there somewhere. But the content, and then we build on that, right? And then for our own conference, we build on that, and then we also ask for call for papers and things like that. What do our customers want to hear about? We ask them, tell us what you want to learn about. And then that's how it feeds into our agendas and our sessions and so forth like that, even into our sponsors and trade shows. Customers do that all the time. They want to make sure they understand that and then build upon that and then keep them engaged, right? So people have different ways to engage, whether it's online, as virtual. And by the way, there's always going to be a virtual presence. Some people they just don't want to travel, right? Or they're not going to travel halfway around the world for a 2-day event. They're just not going to do it. It's not even about cost. It's just about convenience. So the reason I bring that up is because the way people want to digest information online is different than it is in person, right? And so we cultivate all of that, and then that's what inspires us to create the kind of content that we create, and then our customers are doing the same thing that we're doing. That's why we do those behind the scenes things. To say, people ask us, hey, Cvent, how do you pull this off? Besides 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, how do you pull this thing off? It's because we work with our customers and our prospects to understand what they want to hear, right? And that's basically how we do it. And our suppliers as well. We also ask suppliers, what do you see in the marketplace? Whether you're a hotel chain or an airline or a ground transportation, what are you seeing? Let's make sure that we take that content and bring it to our customers as well, because we may not be aware of it. Mm-hmm. So we do tap into our partner network as well.
I think it's one of the greats of this channel, and I'm not biased at all because we're one of the Cvent's partners.
Sure.
I mostly act as an event attendee, that event planner myself. And on a lot of events, the first thing I notice is how event planners are supporting audience representation and are able to showcase the diversity of opinions, not only from the speaker and sponsor side, but also from their attendees. What does Cvent do to showcase and represent their attendees, whether it's on-site or virtually?
I can speak to our own conference, right, for ourselves. We have 2 of these conferences, actually 3 of these conferences a year, and unless somebody says something very off color or derogatory, we don't hide anything back. We don't hide anything. So if someone has a positive or negative opinion of us or something else, as long as it's not derogatory or there's certain guidelines, we don't hide anything. We showcase all the opinions. Like, hey, you're really great at this, or we didn't like this, or whatever. So we don't hide any of it. Because we learn from that. So we actually showcase that. And the way people get that to us is if it's like virtually, even in person, there'll be a question up on the screen. It'll be like a chat. Say, okay, what do you think of this? Right. And they'll have some answers, and then we'll put them right on the screen. Someone does edit it for the stuff that's not tasteful. But there are, we share all that. So it's engagement at the attendee level, we try not to, frankly, for us, we try not to pass a microphone around the audiences, by the way. We want them to do that through the app, because they don't have to worry about being disclosed or pointed out in a crowd, because some people aren't really comfortable. And since they're not comfortable doing that, we say, no problem. You can do it anonymously. Just do it through the app and say, I like this, I don't like this, here's my opinion. And we learn from that, and we share that with our sponsors and attendees and so forth. So I think there's probably always ways to improve how we support audience representation and how we can get their diversity of opinions out there. But, we don't hold anything back, because, again, we learn from it. And it's good for everybody to be, as forthright and full disclosure as possible. There's lots of ways. We talk about the chat. We talk about the Q&A in sessions. We survey a lot, by the way. We survey after the sessions. We survey after each day. We survey the overall event. We even survey about what they think about the food. They ignored me this year. They did not put fried chicken on the menu, but hey, it's just me. But yeah, we do a lot of that, and it's good for us.
And all those surveys, they go through the app, right?
They do go through the app, or they can go back to their registration site. So, with our platform, the Attendee Hub, it's called Hub for a reason, because whether it's online through the Attendee Hub app, or you're going through your laptop and you're registering, all that content is there, so they can ask through the laptop or computer, desktop, whatever, or online. And there's some other capabilities around texting that we try to do sometimes. And then we also remind people, say, please take the survey. We want to hear from you. And yeah, that helps too.
Have you ever used some incentives to encourage people to answer those? Because I feel like that's the struggle many event planners face. They want to see some feedback, but they don't really get it unless you provide something in return.
We have on occasion. It really, and our customers have done that as well. It depends on the audience and sort of the overall agenda and framework of an event. So, for example, for our Cvent CONNECT, again, the example I'm closest to is that a lot of the people in the audience are professional meeting organizers and event planners and marketers, and frankly, they are not shy of giving us their opinion, right? And most of them are very helpful. It's like, hey, I like what you did here. How can I learn about that? Or would you consider doing this? And so they don't always need any incentive to do that. There are some times when it's more of and that's in context, right? But if there is some information we want to gather, some research, and it's not in that event, but our customers want to learn something, we'd have at times provided incentives of some type to respond when we feel that the audience is so broad and it's out of a specific context that we might need to encourage them a little more through something. We don't do it a lot, but we have done that before. And there's other ways. There's ways to motivate people. It couldn't be certainly by cash or a cash equivalent, like a credit card, not a card, but a gift card of some sort. We also have, in terms of just overall incentives for our own event, survey responses. We remind them they're given a certain due date. We also offer attendees, if they do certain things, like make sure you visit certain number of exhibitors, or you do certain things, and they are remunerated with something. It could be, it's not usually cash. It's usually like a free hotel room or something like that, free night. But and we work with partners to do that. There may be something that's non-cash value that someone says, boy, that really motivates me, but I know it's not cash, but maybe I get something else. It just depends on what the audience is. And that's why that audience engagement is so important, because we know they're going to give us some feedback about an event or how it was handled or the food, but they also will tell us, like, this is what I'm most interested in. This is what helps motivate me. How do I take advantage of it? So that whole engagement strategy is really, really important. Right.
We're almost done with the questions. Before we started this session, we posted on our social media channels announcing that we're going to speak to you today. And we tried to gather some questions on the social wall. We've got quite a lot of them, but I think we can only cover one, maybe one and a half before our time is up. What considerations should event planners keep in mind when it comes to ensuring inclusivity and accessibility in digital transformed in-person events?
So, when we talk about some of this, there's a lot around this topic. And, from Cvent, I can speak how our platform is used, but just generally speaking, there's a large audience out there, and we don't always know everything. I mean, you don't know who is, I'll be very direct. You don't know who has some sort of visual impairment. You don't know who has hearing loss or whatever it might be. You don't know any of this stuff, right? And you can't even really ask about it. But we always suggest that from an accessibility standpoint, there are tools out there, and we have some in our own product that makes things accessible. So, larger font type, pick a button and it makes the fonts larger. We also give guidelines on what things to avoid when it's digitally and it's online. For example, white lettering on yellow background is awful. I mean, it sounds very basic, but we help people with that. Matter of fact, we have a gentleman on our staff his job is accessibility, and this is focus. And he works with all the government regulations and all the different agencies out there who all have opinions and guidelines on how to address accessibility from the start of registration all the way on site and in a virtual environment. Stephen Cutchins is his name, and he's really good at this, and this is his background. And if anybody on this, wants to have an audience with him, we will put you in touch with him and provide some guidance on that, because it's an important topic. And, we want to make sure that every attendee has an opportunity to participate, no matter where they are or whatever challenges they have. They want to be able to partake in the content and learn from whatever that content is in an event. That's a pretty long-winded answer, but we have a focus on that.
Thank you everyone for joining and watching this video. See you in the next episode.